Hello and welcome to the Behind Closed Doors podcast. My name is Alicia Aberley and I'm so grateful that you've joined us in this space. Behind Closed Doors is all about the types of conversations that we only usually have with our best friend, our partner, our counselor, our coach. And sometimes it's the conversations that we don't actually have with anybody else at all. The women that are interviewed in this space are all women that are making a difference to the planet. They're women that are inspiring and empowering. The intention is that you too will feel inspired and empowered by these conversations. So grab a cup of your favorite drink, pop your feet up, and enjoy this episode of Behind Closed Doors. Today's guest is a British inspirational speaker, transformational life coach, and author. She guides people to step into their authentic power and design extraordinary lives that make them feel emotionally and spiritually happy. Our guest empowers her clients to shine into their light through the art of self-love, forgiveness, with a holistic blend of spirituality. Hello and welcome, Gurds Hundal.
Hi, how are you?
I love that. It's like, hi, it's just so cute. Hi. Oh, that was gorgeous. How are you today, lovely lady?
I'm good. I'm really good, thank you. It's 11 o'clock at night, but I'm still full of energy for you. So
I remember the first ever podcast interview that I was on was I got up at 1 o'clock in the morning. We had a blackout and I was sitting in the dark doing this podcast, but I was so excited about it because it was my first one. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, fun. So we are going to touch on some cool topics. We are going to talk about what I love in this space is that you and I are like so on par in our space. So I know we're going to have some great conversation today. So we are going to talk about self-love. We are going to dive into forgiveness and also female empowerment. Do you want to give us a little bit of background of where you've come from and why you're doing what you're doing in your space?
Okay, sure. It might be a bit more than a little bit.
Go for it. This is your floor right now.
Yeah, so basically I'm from London. Actually I'm originally from Leeds in the UK, but I live in London now. I've been here for the last 10 years. So as you probably can tell, I am of ethnicity, so I am Indian. So my parents are Punjabi. So I grew up in it was kind of like an Eastern and a Western kind of background. So had both kind of best of both worlds, but kind of didn't really know myself. And growing up, unfortunately, my mum wasn't well when my brother older was born, and then myself. So she had like postpartum depression. So I saw her grow up with lack of self-love, lack of forgiveness, lack of knowing who she was, because unfortunately that's what happens when you take medicines. You kind of end up losing who you are, not being connected to yourself. So my kind of journey it's like an up and down kind of journey, it's probably the best way of putting it. So when I was 2 years old, we moved from Leeds to Scotland, and my first ever memory, which it's absolutely ridiculous when I think about it, was seeing blood pouring down my dad's arm with an axe in his hand, which is pretty messed up for a 2-year-old to remember. Basically, we'd had some robbers follow us. My parents had a business, and the panel on the window at the front of the house, they smashed it and it fell on my dad's arm. But still having that memory of like pain from a young age was pretty deep. And that kind of led on to a lot of things in my life. So mum wasn't well. And I remember the ambulance coming once when I was about 5 years old, and, she wasn't well and had to be taken. And I remember saying to my dad, why are you taking my mum away from me? You can imagine as a young child not really knowing what's going on and thinking, how could this person I love so much being taken away from me for a short period of time? And, don't get me wrong, it wasn't her fault. It's one of those things that these kind of things happen. She got better later down the line, but then after, like, in the space of a few months, about a year later after that, my uncle passed away, and then 6 months later my grandma passed away. And it starts on a journey of it being about other people, but you'll kind of see how it ends up affecting myself. And then my dad, when I was about 9 or 10 years old, he was involved in a car accident. I didn't see him for about a year. It was really bad. Like 3 people, there were four of them in the car. The driver of the wheel had passed away on the wheel. He died of a heart attack, and they fell in the ditch. One of my other dad's friends passed away in a coma, and my dad had 3 metal plates in his arm. But before that, my dad had called up to say that he's going to take over the wheel. So when we got the phone call at 3 a.m. in the morning, saying the driver had passed away. In that short time, we actually thought my dad had gone. And you can imagine the emotions and the confusion. And then when we did actually find out it wasn't him, which unfortunately was my dad's friend, but it was like a relief. So again, I was seeing pain, and, you know, he had 3 metal plates in his arm. So I didn't, for about a year, he couldn't even sleep on a bed. He used to sleep on a sun lounger in the living room. I used to watch him kind of almost regenerate his arm. And it's not easy seeing somebody that you care for go through that. But after that, I kind of ended up getting into fights. I know I didn't at the time. I got suspended. And I was lost in my culture, in the sense I didn't know if I was British. I didn't know if I was Indian, because I'd been raised in a way where we saw both of the best worlds. But I always didn't feel like I fitted in. Like, I didn't even know the colour of my own skin until I was 6 years old, and someone said to me, "Why are you different to me?" And I was like, "We're the same." That was literally my upbringing. I had no clue. But yeah, things got a lot worse. Like, you know, with the identity, then I ended up having eating disorder because I didn't feel loved in myself. I didn't know who I was at the time. And then I ended up having like IBS, had lack of love. And then when I was about 16, I met somebody. He was the love of my life at that time. And we planned on getting married, which ends up turning out to be a bit of a mess later on. But when I was 18 years old, I was working in a pharmacy. So you can imagine mum not being well when I was a kid, and I start seeing all these medicines and I'm thinking they're good for you. And my mum used to be a nurse. So I'm like trying paracetamol, trying Advil, trying these water retention tablets, even though I didn't need them. It was like a candy shop to me when I look at it. It was awful. Now, obviously, I see it in a different way. But I used to collapse after work. And at the time, I didn't understand energies and like how we can be affected by other people's energy. So you can imagine at the pharmacy, people coming with their problems, their aches and pains. And I always had this personality where people just told me everything. So I'd have a customer there for about 10 minutes telling me their life story or telling me something, and I'd be guiding them. And the pharmacist would be like, "What are you doing?" But I would go home drained. That was the problem. I'd go home and I would sit near the radiator and just collapse because I was just so emotionally drained. It wasn't my energies, it's other people's energies. But I hadn't learned how to protect myself at that time. And then literally after that, when I hit to my, so 18 was not too bad. That was okay. 19, my partner at the time, we planned on getting married when I was 21. Unfortunately, he passed away in a car accident. And that just numbed me. Best way of putting it is that I went home and just downed a bottle of wine. And I acted like nothing had happened. I became recluse, probably the best way of putting it. I suddenly felt the need to save everybody else except for myself. So like, I felt like I couldn't save mum, I couldn't save Rav, so I now need to save the whole world. So my mission became this thing, even though I wasn't doing like counselling or anything like that. I was actually studying to do journalism, something that I'd always loved, and I loved the media, and I loved health journalism, funny enough. And I just felt like any friend or anybody out there, I needed to save them. So I'd be on the phone till 3 a.m. in the morning, my dear. And with that, I would collapse. I'd be tired. My emotions would be up and down like a yo-yo, because again, I wasn't expressing myself. And one thing I did forget to tell you was when mum wasn't well as a kid, my dad kind of said to us, we're not allowed to tell anybody, because within ethnic communities, it's kind of shunned upon. But to be honest, in most cultures and backgrounds, it's shunned upon when someone's got a mind illness. So that became like the story of my life, where I didn't tell people my issues. I acted like everything was fine, but inside everything was like turmoil. My emotions were turmoil. I didn't handle very well with like things going wrong, or like Brad passing away, or anything upset, or like my grandma passing away, or things that would upset me. I would just act like almost like an alpha male, like everything's fine, let's carry on, and would care about everybody else except for myself. And then because of that, I manifested a lot of things later down my life which were quite toxic. So because of Brad dying, I was scared to hug my own mother. I was scared to hug my own dad and my brother, because I was scared that if I hugged them, they would pass away. I know it sounds messed up now, but back then I was so scared. So I used to give people like the side hugs, and it would be like a little gentle tap, just because I was afraid of somebody getting close to me and like something happening to them. And life got a bit more messier when I was 21. I was actually involved in a car accident. I had short-term memory loss. But again, being Gurds, I didn't ask for help. I was like, everything's fine. 3 months later, I collapsed. And I couldn't tell you what I had for breakfast, who I was, how many hours sleep I had. I bless my mum, she forced me to go to the doctors. And when I went to the GP, I didn't say at the time, It's heard the background.
Yeah, I can hear that too. I'll just get Lou to cut that out. So if you just want to say that sentence again, Gurds, that would be great.
Yeah, so when I forgot where I was now.
You asked your mum?
Oh yeah. So bless my mum, she told me to go to the doctors. So I went to the doctors, but I didn't say that actually I had a car accident. So this doctor read 10 questions off a computer, said to me, you're depressed, you need to take antidepressants, or you can see a psychologist. And I thought, who the hell is this person? He doesn't know what I've gone through. He doesn't know my strength. So I smiled and I walked out and I ripped up the prescription and I walked off. And bless my mum, she forced me to go again, but this time to see another doctor. So the next day, off I went to see another doctor, and I said, I had a car accident. Could this be the case that this is why I'm feeling lost and, really upset? She goes, absolutely, take 3 months time off of university because I was in my final year and you'll be fine. Within 3 months, actually, funny enough, I was absolutely fine. I just went out in nature. I connected with nature and I just took time to breathe and ignored people's issues and just focused on myself, and everything was going positive again. I was feeling more upbeat for once. Even though everything had happened with Rav, I was still drinking, don't get me wrong. I started to excessively drink, but I hid that from a lot of people. And then when I was after the car accident and everything went better, I actually went to go study a master's in London. And when I was out here, everything was going great, but then I ended up in an emotionally abusive relationship, which was toxic. And I did forget, my dear, sorry about this. There's so much that happened in my life. Sometimes I forget half the things, and it's only when we're talking that I remember. There was an extended family member when I was about 6, 7 years old. He put his hand next to my temple and said to me, "You are nothing." Now, as you can imagine, as a child hearing that, that's gonna affect you. I didn't have any self-worth in myself. I didn't believe in myself. I thought that my life is going to pan out the way this person said it, and that manifested in that relationship when I was 22 years old. Everything that he had said to me ended up in that relationship, which was so toxic, my dear, to the point I didn't recognize myself. I remember crying all the time, to a point. I remember one point I was looking in front of the mirror saying, "What happened to that girl? What happened to the one who was strong and fearless and didn't care what anybody else thought?" And I just cried, and I remember I've had enough. And I still don't even know to this point how I passed my master's. I don't know. Somebody was helping me up there because I have no clue. I still don't even remember half the things of that degree. And so what does a person do when they're upset and really heartbroken? They fly off to Canada.
Of course you do. They get into drugs, they get into alcohol. No, they fly off to Canada.
Because it was my way of, I didn't deal with my emotions. I was running away again, as usual. So I went out to Canada. I worked for CTV National News for a bit, and everything was going great. But what I didn't realise was how far the journey was, because I was quite young. I was 22 at the time. I was a bit naive. It was a 2-hour journey there and 2 hours back, and it was a 12-hour shift. So pretty much I was screwed. And because I hadn't dealt with all my emotions up till that point, it came back into hitting my arm. So one morning I was going to the kitchen at my cousin's house, went to grab some bread, and I collapsed, and my left arm just went boom. And I had numbing sensation down my hand. I had no feeling here or anything. Went to the hospital, saw the neurologist. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Had to end up flying 2 months later because I was like, "Oh, I'll be fine, everything's fine." No. So went back home. They couldn't help me either. And what I realized in that moment was I'd given myself, I'd forgotten myself, actually. I'd forgotten to love myself. I'd given all my love to somebody else who didn't really care about me at that time. And it was reminding me to love me. So when I started doing things that kind of made me feel happy, and bless my dad, funny enough, he showed me the tools that he used to regenerate his arm. And when I did all those tools and techniques, my arm started moving again. Like you can see now, it's 360. I couldn't even do that at the time. I couldn't even cut a carrot. So with that, it was, again, I was seeing signs that I needed to do these things, but again, I wasn't doing it fully. So, I got better, came back to London. And then once I was working in London, I was working for different news channels, BBC, ITV. And then I got a bit greedy with a bit of money, because when you're young, you think, "Oh, let me just get this job and I'll get some extra money." So I ended up becoming a financial publisher whilst freelancing at lots of different places. The money was great, don't get me wrong. However, I was working till sometimes 11:30 at night. And my boss was just one of those that complained, and it was very, again, energy draining. And I was always wanting to help everybody else, but never myself again. So I'd be listening to everybody else's problems in the office, but not dealing with my own. And I ended up in toxic relationships, like, you know, going on dates with people who didn't treat me well, disrespected me. But again, I was like, why is this happening to me? But not realizing at the time that was me manifesting it.
Yeah.
It was so bizarre. And then basically after that, a few months into the job, I actually collapsed 3 times. The third time I wasn't breathing, my dear, and an ambulance had to come and get me. And I remember all the people that, you know, that I would listen to their problems in the at work. Not one person came with me. And I thought, what kind of world am I living in? You know, are people for real that they're more bothered about their jobs than actually going to see if someone's okay? And one of my colleagues turned around to my boss and said, who's going to do her work now? And I just was in like disheartened. I couldn't believe that I was around these types of people that had, not to be mean, but at that time I thought didn't have a heart, or were so obsessed with their work that they couldn't see that this is somebody that would do anything to help them. So I remember that night after I'd gone from the hospital and they did all the checks, and I decided to walk. It was an hour away from home, but I was like, screw it, I'll just walk. I remember walking that night and saying, what happened to Gurds? What happened to that girl that wanted, you know, to be a health journalist, which I'd always loved doing, and I kind of sacrificed that for a little bit. You know, it's time for me to get out of here. So I kind of manifested that I wanted to leave in like 2 months' time. It's funny how the universe works. 2 weeks later, I was made redundant. And I remember my boss coming up to me and saying, you know, I'm sorry, we'll have to let you go. And I shook his hand. I was like, thank you. It's the best decision you ever made. And I walked out and I was so happy. I remember going home and I was sliding up and down the hallway in the flat that I had at the time with one of my friends. And then I was jumping up and down my bed like, freedom. And literally after that, everything started going great again. I was freelancing at like lots of health magazines, like Women's Health, lots of GP nursing magazines, but I wasn't happy with the content. It didn't feel organic to me. It just felt like it was press releases regurgitated. I wanted stories like, you know, spirituality, mindset, but I didn't know the right route at that time. And so I was just about to hit my 25th birthday, and then something else happens, which was another thing that happened, but it transformed my life forever. So a week before my 25th birthday, I got a cancer scare. And again, Gurds being Gurds, I could handle it, would go to the hospital by myself and act like everything was fine. But at that time, when I thought that they said to me that I could have cancer, I went off the rails. I was drinking. I was like, my life's going to end. Who cares? Going out, getting drunk, you know, not caring about life. And then to be honest, if I look back at some photos, I look like, you can see how drained and emotionally drained I am. And then it was about 3 months later, they misdiagnosed me. And when they said that they misdiagnosed me, like, it was like a switch just flickered in my mind. It was like, right, it's time to change. And I remember like going back home that night and thinking, I don't want to live life like this anymore, because I'd had a lot of anger and bitter in my heart because of things that had happened or the way I was raised and, you know, how we see things. So I went home and I wrote 30 pages of my life in 7 hours. I still don't know how I did this today. The sun had risen as well. Like, I don't know, like I just wrote everything out, and I started to see the patterns of my life from the age of 2 and how I'd end up manifesting and where all these things came from. So the next day I called up all the people I had problems with, and I just sent them a message saying, hey, life's too short. Some of them got back to me and it was great, and some that didn't, that's absolutely fine, because I needed to forgive them in order to move forward. And then it led me on a journey of self-love, you know, not even just forgiving them, forgiving myself. I caught up with that ex-partner that I had a bad relationship with. He apologized. We're now good friends. And I just went on a journey of just, how can I put it? Treating myself and adding value in myself and trusting the process and not allowing other people's energies to affect me. And by me doing that, I ended up in this journey of coaching. I got a radio show. They randomly found me. Ended up in spirituality, ended up doing yoga and meditation that I used to do as a kid. And then we just thrown into lots of different things. And that's kind of where I am today, really.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a mad journey.
Far out, like, whoa, you know, that's just, what an incredible journey. So much stuff's going through my mind, like listening to you speak, and what comes to me is that, isn't it amazing how that my belief system and the work that I do in my coaching space, and I feel like yours will be exactly the same, is that when we don't deal with our emotions, they store in the body. And yeah, right. And so just listening to you, it's like, oh my gosh, like as a little child being keeping in, like not being able to tell people things, so hiding things from people, feeling like you weren't worthy, holding that on the inside, so much death around you, like, oh my gosh, just constriction. And I really want to bring that to the forefront here, is that or what I want to bring to the forefront is that in our lives, when we hold on to so much, it has to come out somewhere, doesn't it?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. What I did want to say beforehand was that I used to take a lot of medications when I worked in the city. Paracetamol, you might say Advil, we say ibuprofen here. It's been about 6 years I haven't taken anything. I don't need any paracetamol or anything. If I've got a headache, I'm either dehydrated or I'm tired. We just think we need quick fixes. But yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry, what was the question before?
There was no, I didn't even know. There was no question. It was just like an agreement in there that.
I remember now. I remember. Yeah, like if we don't clear our emotions, it does get stored in our body. I say this to a lot of people, like, imagine like your auntie is really angry at your uncle. Now, every time your auntie will see your uncle, how dare he treat me that way? And, all these emotions come up, but your uncle's already moved on. Now, that energy that she keeps storing and building up will eventually manifest somewhere in her body, whether that's in your kidney, whether that's in your heart, whether that's, a heart attack. It's a lot of the way we feel is how our body, what's the way of saying it? Our body will feel that. So like for example, my left arm stopped working because I don't know if you know the difference, but like we have male and female energy. So my left side is my female energy, my right side is my male energy. So my left hand, and I'm also left-handed, so my left side of my body was screaming out for self-love. I was giving more than I was receiving.
Which is so common for females, yeah?
Yeah. But you see, it's because we're told to be strong and we're told to act like men in the working world, that we kind of lose ourselves, like even men as well, that we've both got male and female energy, but we don't know how to accept both. We need to have the balance. And I'd always lived from my male energy because my dad raised me up a bit like a tough man, like, tough cookie, he was like, you can do anything. So I used to do the gardening, I used to do everything, and I even change my own light bulbs. So if a guy wanted to help, I'd be like, no, I've got this. But it was like I wasn't honoring my female energy, and that was what caused a lot of my health problems, because I wasn't honoring that side. And I feel like a lot of people, especially in the working world, like, if you're working 9 to 5, you're too busy focused on, especially women, like trying to be like men, but we're not men. We need to honor our emotions and honor our female essence, because that's what makes us stronger. That's what makes us like feel balanced as well. But if we keep focusing on the male energy, we actually damage the female energy. And that's where, like you said, there's health problems come up, whether it's self-love, where it's headaches, where it's pains in certain bodies, which is trying to remind you to love yourself.
Anxiety, depression, all of that's my belief system as well. All those things that come up. And the way I look at it is that every single ailment that we have, or every single event that happens to us that we are not happy with, is alerting us. And the more we listen to it, the less those things will happen. If we're not listening to those alert systems and those signs, then the more shit will show up in our lives. And like I've witnessed that with myself time and time again. I've witnessed that with so many people. I've witnessed that with clients. And, it's interesting, like when you talk about the feminine energy and the masculine energy, it's a big favorite place of mine to talk about and to explore. So I remember as well, within the last 12 months, like close to 12 months ago, I started exploring the feminine space. And I had this misconception that I had to find, what was it? I had to learn, what was my thought process around that? It's like, I live in masculine energy. I need to figure out how to be in the feminine energy. I need to find what that means. And it was so interesting. Like now when I look at that, what I want to do here is break this down for our audience, our incredible audience. If you're a listener and you find that you tend to live in masculine energy a lot as well, that's just the do, constant do. Not much time for yourself. In that business head, constant headspace. Just want to break it down so you can have an understanding of this, is that we don't have to find it. It's already there. We just have to remember it. And I think in hearing that and in understanding that, it was really beautiful. And one of the biggest game changers for me, and I've mentioned this so many times in my space, and I want to mention it again in case someone's listening and they haven't heard about this, the book Code Red. Have you read that, Gurds?
No, I haven't actually. Code Red. No.
Code Red. It's one of the most life-changing books I have ever read, like top 5 books of all time, because Lisa Lister is the author, and she shows us from so we have in our cycle, it's a one, you know, most people have a cycle of 28 days, give or take a bit. And that cycle for us, like us women, we're cyclic. So we live cyclic, up, down, round, round, in and out, you know, think we're crazy. People think we're bitchy, whatever it is. There's so many things that go on for a girl in a month. And Lisa Lister breaks it down to weekly and how our energy sits, and when we sit in feminine energy and when we sit in masculine energy, and how to best work with that week of our month. So if we look at a 28-day time frame, break it up over 4 weeks. That's got summer, autumn, winter, and spring in it. It's got the moon cycles in it. It's got feminine energy and masculine energy. So many different aspects that come in and play a part for where we're at each week in our cycle. And when I talk about that, just to break it down more simply, we've got premenstrual, menstrual, pre-ovulation, and ovulation. So of those four experiences we have every single month, like we're a different person in each of those weeks. Like we are, it's like we have 4 personalities. Far out, women have 400 personalities most of the time. But you know, we distinctly have 4 separate ways of being throughout our month. And when I understood that and read her information, it really gave me the foundation work to understand myself as a woman, and to really begin to live into that place and the energies that are around at that time. It's helped me to realize I'm not crazy. It's helped me to not be emotional so much. I mean, I think it's really great as women to be emotional, get that out if you have it. Yeah, definitely. Yet I don't feel the way I used to feel. And I know at one certain day of my month, I'm really sad. And now I don't beat myself up going, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. I just go, oh yeah, cool. That's where we're at in the cycle. It's day 14. Okay, this is standard. And it's like, okay, what do I need to do on that day? Nurture myself. So I think, yeah, the feminine energy space is so beautiful. And it's such a shame that us women don't remember how to access that, or we're not taught to step into that from childhood. So I recommend that book to every single woman that walks the planet, every young girl that's coming into to their period age. Yeah, it's phenomenal. That's just one learning.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you're saying that, because you see, self-love comes from, it's a generational thing. So if our mothers don't show us self-love, they don't know anything better. So it's not their fault. And then if it's their mom didn't show them, so how would they know what to show us? So we learn through generational patterns, and that is what we carry on doing. But if something is kind of, not to say toxic, but if something doesn't resonate with your soul, you can be the one to cut that cord and create that inner love. Like we've talked about this before, and that it's so important that you honor that female energy, because like even myself, like I was raised like a boy, right? And if I was emotional, I remember everyone would say, oh, you're too emotional. And I'd be like, oh, no, I don't mean to be emotional. And I used to block that emotion, and then it would store in my body and then come out in other ways, like IBS, or I had other problems going on in my body, or I'd have severe headaches. And I feel like even men, they kind of get told, don't be so emotional, but they're human beings. I think that's what we need to remember, is we're all humans. It's okay to cry. It's okay to get things out of your system. The more you do it, the easier, like you'll feel better about yourself. You'll feel that energy that you're feeling upset about will just clear. But if you keep holding on to it, it will just build up, like you said, and it will just store in your body. And then before you know it, some health problem will come along. Yeah. So like, even like when I entered the business world, right? There's that saying, you need to work 10 times harder than the other person. And like, I was living off 3 hours sleep, my dear, like, drained and tired, and my partner would be like, what are you doing? I'm like, no, I need to succeed. I need to get there quick. And what I did in the end, I actually damaged myself, because I started to, get memory loss. I started getting pains in my right side, in my kidney. I actually made my health worse. And it took me about another 2 years to sort my health out and sleep properly. And when I started sleeping properly and nurturing my inner love and giving myself that female energy and saying, you know what, it's okay to have a day off, that's when I started honoring myself. But I feel like a lot of women, we feel like we need to compete in this world like with men, and that we need to be 10 times ahead of them, and that we need to get things done. But it's okay to take a day off. It's fine. Like, why are you beating yourself up about it? It's interesting, isn't it, how we've been conditioned to think that way.
Yeah, and part of that feminine space, like you're saying, Gurds, it's to be, it's to allow. When it's if you have back to the cycle thing again, if you're due for your period and all you want to do is sleep, like take that time for you. What I find interesting in the corporate space, I know people may be listening right now and thinking, you know, I can't take time off from my work. It's like, what I find interesting is that we can sell our soul to somebody else's dream and work our asses off to not even get ahead, like just work, because we base our value and our worth off what we do. And that value and worth, we compromise who we are and what we are based off looking for that, what do you call it? Like looking for people to see value in us. And I feel like that we have it all backwards in that space. When we're hardcore corporate, it's awesome. You know, I think it's amazing to have accolades, and if that lights you up, doesn't personally light me up, but I think it's amazing. You know, if you are driven that way, that's awesome. Yet there is a different way. And you can still honor that in yourself without drilling yourself into the ground, without making yourself get nervous and sick and have anxiety and become an alcoholic and all of that stuff, because you can't handle the pressures of your everyday life, because you're just trying to do the best that you can. I think when we let go of all of that, when we can actually honor what we need, that's a really big one. How do I feel right now? What do I need right now? And when we honor that, less illness, less stress, less working with 3 hours sleep, less anxiety, depression. And it's just practice. And I think if we've always been one way, it's really important to know, if we've always been one way, be kind to yourself. You know, change takes time. It doesn't have to take a very long time. It's up to you. You decide how long it takes you. However, it does take some time to create new patterns.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting you said all that, because there was something on the TV yesterday I was watching, and it was some like hospital program, randomly watching it, and this woman was in hospital and she was a solicitor, and she was saying, I can't have this operation because I don't have time, my clients need me, there's a client who needs me right now. And the doctor said to her, your health is more important. She's like, oh, I don't care. She's like, well, if you don't care, you might not be here in 2 years' time to help all these other clients. And I just thought, do you know what, that is so true, that we, in those kind of corporate world jobs, that you're so lost in your career path that you forget all knowledge of self. And like you said, valuing yourself and saying no to things if you don't want to do. I think that was the biggest lesson for me, was say no.
Yes, like this whole guilt thing, this whole martyr thing, that I have to do everything that everybody else wants, and if I don't do that, then I feel guilty. It's like, fuck me, seriously? Like, I lived my life that way too. I was so tired and run down and stressed out because I genuinely have a gift, I genuinely have a heart for helping people. And I genuinely have a heart space of care and consideration. Yet I feel like we can get confused and think we have to give our souls away. I don't think we're any good to anybody when we say yes to things that we don't really want to do. So we can give more when we're empowered in self by doing the things that we want to do. You know, you don't have to sell your soul. And I get this with, like I am empathetic and an empath. So I can be in a room with people and I'm not an empath. I have empath tendencies, ability, I don't know what you call it, but it's there. You know, I can walk into a room and I can feel you. If you're out of whack, if you are sad, whatever it is, without even looking at you, I just pick up on that energy. And I had someone recently say to me, you know, I'm an empath and it just happens that I'm drained and all of this. And I'm like, whoa, no, that's just a decision that you made to feel drained in that space. Like, where's your boundaries? And I think in that space for us, it's great to give, it's great to share, it's great to do things for other people, yet not at the expense of you. So boundaries, do you know, I never even knew, Gurds, this was so funny. When boundaries got brought to my attention a couple of years back,
oh gosh,
it was so funny because never in my life, like, you know how we have, like when we learn something, we always have something to compare it to. Like there's always something to compare it to. So when boundaries come up for me, when somebody said to me, oh, you need to put some boundaries in place, I'm like, what's a boundary? Literally, there was nothing. It was so strange for me. It was like a whole other language. I could not grasp a boundary because I had nothing to compare it to. And it's the first time in my life that has ever happened. It was like, how do I I have no idea how to have a boundary. And I think the self-love space is where boundaries can become really clear, in that self-love is about, for me, this is my take on self-love. It's my favorite topic, is that you are number one. Self-love is that you say yes to you when you want to say yes. You say no the rest of the time when it doesn't serve you. Self-love is honoring your needs. Self-love is appreciating the feminine and the masculine. Self-love is treating yourself like a freaking queen, like your body is a temple. What foods are you putting in there? What are you listening to? Who are you associating with? If we love ourselves the way that we love others, we would not put shitty foods in our body all the time, like balance. Yeah, great. But we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't hang out with people that we're not feeling supported by. We wouldn't put ourselves in situations that didn't serve us. Ultimate self-love, I think, is being beautifully, selfishly centered with you first. Then you can be of service to others.
See, I don't see self-love as selfish. I see it as selfless, because you see, we're we're both quite similar. After I on the show as well, is that we didn't have somebody showing us the way. So if we didn't growing up, we didn't see others doing boundaries, so we didn't know what boundaries were. And like, it's not just boundaries with it for ourselves, it's culturally, it's religiously, it's, gender, everything you can think of. Because when we've grown up, we've had all these ideologies. People have said to us, this is how you need to be, being, for me, for example, being Indian, right? So we need to help in the kitchen, we need to help, and the boys go out and play. Who made that crap up? Like, in the actual context of like Sikhism, for example, like, I'm not religious, I'm more spiritual these days. But it talks about equality, yet the people are not doing, like, the people around me weren't doing equality. And so it's like one thing for another. And then I'm told to be strong in one way, then told to be like this, and then told to be like that. So then I don't even know what my boundaries are. And then suddenly I'm thinking this is the way because this is what somebody else told me. And like yourself, when I realized boundaries, it's like, oh my God, like, wow, like, this exists? No, I can't do this because it's too selfish. No, that's wrong because I'm here to help people. No, I can't do this because I need to save the world. But when I started to honor myself and respect myself and realize that actually I can't serve from an empty vessel, I need to top myself up first before I can give back, that's when I started to take my power back. And also, like, how can I put it? That boundaries isn't a bad thing. Boundaries they need to be there, because if you don't have them, you could end up on the floor. That's the way I see it. Like
100%. Yeah.
And my biggest lesson, my dear, was when I wasn't breathing, when I collapsed. Actually, this is when I had I had a kidney problem a few years back, and when it started, I remember going in an ambulance with like the breathing masks that you have on. And a friend of mine called me up, and I got into hospital. I took it off and I was like, hey, are you okay? She's like, oh, I've just heard what's happened to you. Yeah. And within 2 seconds, she made it all about some guy she was seeing and all the problems she had. And I thought, I could die here right now and you could care less. And that really made me realize that, you know what, you have to have boundaries. And even when you do put those boundaries, the people from the past won't understand it. They'll think you've changed, but really you haven't changed. You're just giving yourself more self-love and respect. And usually those people have got so used to taking advantage of you that when you do something like that, it's like, oh, it's not right for them because they've lost all power of you.
And it can make people feel uncomfortable, like totally uncomfortable for when you grow, because they don't see that in themselves. And I just want to go back onto what you said before. Like, lovingly, beautifully selfish, to me, I like the word selfish, because I know, like, and I know, like, with these, I think you said selfless is a word you use, and a lot of people use selfless, and I think, yes, selfless is an incredible word as well. I really do love the word selfish. And I know, like, Kim Morrison from 28, she says, what is something like, self-love's not selfish, it's essential. Like, I love that. Yet I just love that beautifully lovingly selfish. For me, I didn't know, I just love that. I just think that that's I don't take it as a negative word. I think it's quite an empowering word and an empowering way to be selfish in you, because it's just the way that people have defined it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, whatever suits you. Whatever works in your language, I think is awesome.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the people around you. So for me, growing up, people say you're selfish when I used to do something. So for me, it was always seen as like a negative word because others were calling me that. And it's like, I'm not that. I'm not that. Like, I'm not that at all. So that for me kind of made me think, oh, I'm not like that. Like you said, the word selfish, I'm like, oh, I don't like that word. But when I think of selfless, I'm like, yeah, I have to be selfless. So it's what you're right. It's what resonates with you.
It's totally what resonates with you. It's like I have the word bitch really makes my skin crawl, and it's like it took me a while to figure. Yet I like the word, like I love all other swear words. You know, there's no problem. You can say whatever you want in front of me. There's no words that are off limit. But bitch, really, just I find it really insulting. And then when I had a conversation with somebody else about this in a podcast, and when I did a little bit of self-inquiry on that, it's that I'd been called bitch quite a few times by past partners. And so I like that label that I had attached to that and how that made me feel. I felt cringeworthy, or it felt cringeworthy when I would hear that word. So yeah, I think it's funny, isn't it? The way that we see things and what words mean what to us. And it's just words, and it's words that somebody gave the word to something. Interesting.
I find it usually it's not actually the word itself, it's the tonality of the person saying it.
Yeah, and the meaning you've given it. Like everything's just the meaning we give it, right? Everything. There's no word, no experience, no nothing that means anything except for the way that we choose to see it. And I think I'm reading the Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Have you ever read that book?
No, I haven't.
Far out. I am loving that book. I forget what I was just going to say was in there. What was we just saying a couple of seconds ago to make me ask about that book? What did you say?
About the wording. So
perception. Everything's just our perception. Yeah. So he goes into talk. There's a section in the book where he talks about that, how your enemy could be my best friend, and a situation for you could be really hard, but for me it could be a big growth zone. It's only ever, every situation, everything that happens in life is only the way that we view it. And like that's, when you look at that, it's like everything is bullshit. Everything's a story. Everything's a concoction. It's just how we grew up. It's the beliefs we have. It's the experiences that have formed us and shaped us. I really like to, if I have a strong opinion on something, I really like to stop and go, oh, why do I feel that way? Do you know what? I feel like when I have a really strong opinion on something, there's some work there for me to do. It's like, yeah, okay, why am I so strong in that? What's my trigger point here?
And it's probably usually from our childhood, isn't it?
100%, 0 to 7, our imprint age, is where we make our decisions on everything. And I love that. A limiting belief started with a limiting decision. So interesting. We have talked like for, I don't know, like around about 40 minutes on self-love and experiences and cool stuff like that. And I know we had 2 other topics. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where the topics go. I love where they go, but I would really love to just talk a little bit. I mean, we've talked a bit about it anyway, but forgiveness, I'd like us to go just spend a little bit of time in there. So how would you like to lead with that?
See, for me, forgiveness is what set me free, because I didn't have, the way I see it is that it wasn't about forgiving others, it was about forgiving myself. Mm-hmm. When I was forgiving other people, it was forgiving all the anger and pain I felt within. And when I did that, I felt like a new person. And I feel like a lot of people say, oh, I can't forgive. And a lot of my clients say that in the beginning, oh, I can't forgive. I'm like, but why can't you forgive? And it's because they store that energy of that other person inside them so much that it's created this anger and almost hatred. That the hatred actually isn't about the other person. The hatred is within themselves. And if we don't forgive it, that anger or hatred or whatever you want to call it won't release. But when we do, you're like a new person.
Yeah, you never have to forget something if you don't want to. I feel though with you that forgiveness is the ultimate key. You're not doing damage to the person. You're doing so much damage to yourself when you hold on to something so tight. Like you said something earlier. It's with the uncle example. You said, oh, that something was done and then he's moved on, but the auntie's still holding on to it. And it's like that, when we have experiences, regardless of whether it's, to the extremes of rape or physical abuse or something like that, or whether it's something small, like holding on. It's like the damage, holding on to the hatred and what's happened does so much more damage to us, doesn't it, than actually being able to release and heal.
Yeah, like the extended family member that said to me that I was nothing at a young age. When I forgave him, I realized actually the issue wasn't me, the issue was within himself. It was nothing to do with me. It was how he felt about himself, but he was projecting that onto me. And that, I actually had sympathy for him, because I felt sorry for him in the sense that, what happened to him in his life that made him feel that way, that he needed to say something to a young child. Like, why? Like, the way I see it is when people say horrible things or, things that really upset us, it's about realizing, why did they say that in the first place? What happened in their childhood that turned them out to be that way? If you see what I mean.
I do see what you mean. And I also like to take that deeper as well, because I see, why would you let somebody else's, like, children is different. That's just, it's how it happens. It's how every part of our world exists, from what we take on as kids. And like, that person could have said that to me and I wouldn't have taken it the way that you did, Gurds.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's like, I'll just let you have a drink. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's good.
Yeah.
So the way that, like, your interpretation of that would have stemmed from your beliefs and all of your other experiences, whereas someone else could have heard that and just brushed it off. Yet somebody else could have heard something totally different, and then they took that on as a big thing. And what I find is that, yes, there are things that people do and the things that people say that aren't uplifting for us. Probably there's so many words I could have there. So many words there that are things that we don't want to hear. And I think one of the things I've learned in my NLP studies, which I love, and this was a big game changer for me, like huge game changer, is that everybody is doing the best that they can. And when we can respect somebody's model of the world, so one of the key elements of NLP is to respect other people's models of the world. And I've had this conversation multiple times, probably in this platform as well. I don't recall. I'm sure I would have brought this up before in a podcast. My example is that I know if you were raped, then I'm going to go to the extreme here. If you were raped, I know that this happened to somebody. And this is like total ownership, right? And this can be a little bit hardcore. So but I'm going to say it. I would like to open the discussion here on this, is that you would never ask for that to happen, right? That's extreme. Like, that's so extreme. And your space is your space and deserves to only be your space until you want to share that with somebody else. So that event is really unfortunate. When we come back to respecting other people's models of the world and taking full cause for our lives, like taking full ownership for our own lives, which are two NLP things, when we can do that, we then can look at the situation in a different way to go, okay, that person, even though that act was not right for us, that person is doing the best that they can with what they've got. So forgiveness, whilst it can be challenging, and I know I'm pushing it to the extreme here, extreme example, forgiveness, when we can come from a place of forgiveness for that person, and then we're not doing damage to ourselves even more. And also understanding that, and this is what this is like, I just feel like this is hardcore to bring this up. Like this, here we go, behind closed doors. If you went out to the night, if you got really, really drunk with your girlfriends and like didn't really give a shit about anything else, and you were all over the place, messy drunk, and you put yourself into a situation where it was dangerous to you, you did that. You didn't get asked to be raped, but you did that. You took yourself to the space. You didn't ask for the experience to happen. That's really unfortunate that happened. But when we take full ownership and cause for our lives, it's like, you know what? I got myself really fucked up. I got really drunk. I didn't ask for it. And there's a fine line here. So it's not that you asked for it or that you deserved it. It's just taking ownership that you put yourself in that situation. So then the blame's not like, well, you're this and you're that and blah, 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 blah. And when we can have compassion for humanity, and this is self-love too, and global love, when we can have compassion and know that we're all an extension of each other, yeah, that's a shitty thing to happen. true, like a shitty thing to happen, there are other elements that come into that as well. And I think true forgiveness not only relieves you, but it also lets other people go too. And I love when we heal ourselves, we heal the planet. So shitty things do happen to people. Shitty things do. I get that 100%. Rape is a shitty thing to happen. I would not wish that upon anybody.
Yeah.
Yet the growth and the learning from that, I feel, I feel like it's such an interesting topic. You want to bring anything into that, Gurds?
You see, the way I always have this saying, forgiveness is for you, not for them.
100%.
Because in situations like that, because obviously I've had certain people come to me about certain things that you just said, actually, it's about making them realize that, how can I put it? They didn't ask for, like you said, they didn't ask for that to happen. But even in those moments of whatever happened, that if they don't forgive themselves, they're going to torment themselves for the rest of their life. They're not going to be able to trust anybody else. And that if they can find it in their hearts to come out of, kind of stand out as a third person, analyze the situation and realize something must have been so, my language, fucked up for that person to do something like that.
100%.
Yeah. So making them realize that somebody had to be, there's something gone wrong there for somebody to do that. And that actually, that they, how can I put it? Just understanding why that person behaved, not that it was right anyway, but something must have had so bad to them, in whether it's their childhood or their upbringing, for them to even think that way or even act that way. Yeah. That if they can find in their heart to forgive that person, they will set themselves free. That will allow them to bring in the right kind of relationships into their life. Because if you kind of don't do that, you end up attracting more kind of people who are going to treat you like shit.
Absolutely. And I think that, just to be clear on that, respecting other people's models of the world, in what you just said there, it doesn't mean that, when I said before, people are doing the best that they can. That's what that means in the respecting other people's models of the world. Everybody is doing the best that they can. You don't know and I don't know why I chose rape. Obviously someone needs to hear this. Like, that's a pretty intense topic to bring in there. You're exactly right. Like, my question is, when I hear things like that, is like, what is going on for that person to be able to do that? It's like the bombing that happened in where was that? Over in Vegas. The sniper attacks, and like, I have mixed emotions on this too. It's like, I heard so many people going, oh, he's this and he's that and he did that and he's a horrible person, blah blah blah. My thing is, straight away, like, I come from a compassionate space always. It's like, what was he going through to be able to do that in the first place? Because I know I couldn't go out into a space and open fire on humans. It's just not in me. So if a person can get to that place, what's going on in their heart space? What's going on in their head space? Like, how did they get, as you said before, fucked up in that space to be able to do that? It's the same with suicide. Do you know, how does a person reach a point? Like, there's conversations around, people say that it's selfish. For me, I'm like, you have a choice. If you if you don't want to be here, that's your choice. You are entitled to your choice. And
sorry, can I put something out?
Yeah, go for it.
It's not selfish. That person's got to that point in their life where they can't express themselves. You know, it's a cry for help. It's usually a cry for help, and they're not getting that help, and they're trying to express it, but they don't know how to express it, and they feel that this is it. That's all they can do, because they no longer feel worthy.
And who are we to dictate that somebody needs to stay on the planet? Like, I find that an interesting debate. Like, it's not our business. That is not our business. It is not up to us to make a decision for somebody else's I think in my brain, I go, I couldn't do that. So what's messed up's not the right word. What's going on? What hurt is there for a person to follow through with that? You know, and I think that compassion element, humans can be so angry. And and everywhere you go, it's like, oh, he did this, or she did that, or my boss did this, or, you know, that person killed this person, or there's so much of that. And I think, and again, like, to the extreme where I was saying about, like, there's so many different things, that extreme of being raped and stuff like that. We're so quick to just go, this is shit, and this is that, and that person's this or that and the other. And it's like that because I think society's like that because of the way that we continue in that space. It's like, self-love first, compassion and self-love for the planet, I feel, is going to heal the planet. It's going to heal the people that are predators. It's going to heal the people that feel like they have to go out into a field and sniper a whole other bunch of people. It's going to heal people from feeling like they need to take their lives. One of my favorite lines at the moment is, it all starts with you. Yeah. You want to make a difference on the planet? Heal yourself first. Clear up those issues. If you've had some shitty things happen to you in your life, whether it be rape, whether it be people in your life have died, whatever it is, shitty stuff happened, that forgiveness place, I feel like, is an awesome place to start. Forgiveness and self-love, I think, just tie in so beautifully together.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if I didn't forgive myself and I didn't inject that positivity of self-love, I wouldn't be here, Maddie. Yeah. It would have got to that point. Yeah. And we can only, like you said, we can only heal the world if we heal ourselves. And I was too busy saving everybody else, but not saving myself. And my body was trying to tell me, it was screaming out to me like, hello, look after me, love me. Give me that love, right? And it was giving me these like series of situations. And it was only till I got to that point where everything just went to the floor, everything just went wrong, to make me realize, actually, I didn't need to look on the outside, I needed to look from within. Yeah. And to love and to forgive. And to forgive the people and the things that they said to me over the years, and realizing that wasn't my story, that's their story of what they think is for me, but that's not my story. I don't need to adopt those things that they think. And like you said,
sorry, go.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, like, we were talking about boundaries, and then me realizing to put boundaries on people like that who have drained my energy in the past, and I've allowed them. And sometimes we always blame others, but actually I allow them to do that. I allow them to take advantage. I allow them to step over my boundaries. So it's about placing those boundaries and saying, hey, I don't care who you are. If you step over it, we'll have a chat.
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and what you just said there about the story, it's like, while you're holding on to what you were holding on to with what that person said to you when you're a kid, you're living that story, right? That has become your story, and that's how you relate to yourself, and that's how you relate to everybody in the world, and that's how you relate to everything that you do in your life, is like, I'm not good enough, when we can release those stories, I think it's super powerful. Sorry, what were we going to say?
I was going to say, I wanted to share something with you. I don't share it with everybody, but I believe forgiveness is so good, because one of the relationships I was in back in the day was toxic. I'm now with that person.
Wow. Wow.
We were both toxic at the time. It was wrong timing. We were the right people, but wrong timing. Now, when we told everybody, from the past, that we were going to get back together, flipping heck, my dear. Friends weren't happy. I was getting phone calls, shouting at me, people threatening me about what I was doing and saying, oh, you know what's going to happen. It's like, people change. If you've changed and they've changed, it's absolutely fine. You hear these stories about, oh, don't ever go back to an ex. Oh, I wouldn't do that. Well, not everybody's the same. Yeah, fair enough. If the person hasn't changed or you haven't changed, well, absolutely, that's fine, because then you won't be able to work together. But if you both change and you're both in toxic situations at the time, which we both were, but you've both overcome them and you've gone on your journey, why not be together? And you know what? We work perfectly.
Yeah.
And the people around us that were creating all the drama, boundaries.
Did you find that the drama came from the other people because of how you spoke about him at the end of your relationship?
Yeah. So back then, years ago, everyone told me he was like this and he was like that, and be careful of him because of this situation. So they were feeding me all this kind of crap about him, and I was believing everything they were saying about him, and that became my representation of him, when really he's nothing like that. And when I realized that, when we got back together, I was like, oh my God, like, that isn't him. They don't know him. This is not what he is. He's actually a really loving person. They're saying this and that. Well, no, that's not true. And to be honest, we're not friends with those people anymore, and you can see why, because it's almost that they weren't happy for us.
Yeah.
Because they weren't happy within themselves. And I was always helping others, but when it came to my personal life, most of the friends at that time didn't like the fact that I would find somebody. So my friendship circle is obviously a lot different now. But I've got loving people around me, you know, who love us, both of us together. But the people back then, they weren't happy in their own lives, and they were just reflecting it onto us.
And I feel that when we're younger and when we're older, whichever age, it doesn't really matter. Where I wanted to go there with that, Gurds, is that what I find is we can be really good at, like, so your relationship was going along, people had already fed you this information about him, you guys broke up. My curiosity was, when you broke up, did you go to those people and go, oh, you were right, you know, he is this, he is that?
No, I never did that.
Never did that. Yeah.
Because I always knew in my heart, like, it sounds really bizarre and maybe cliche, but I knew they were the one. But I didn't know why they were the one. And even though everything was toxic, I'd be like, why do I still care about this person? And, you know, people would talk about it years down the line, I still have a weird, like, uneasy feeling.
Yeah.
Any other ex you could talk about, and I'd be like, yeah, oh God, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
You feel it. But with this one, it was always like, people would say stuff, but I still feel really uneasy. But I couldn't understand at the time why that was.
Yeah. I just find that a lot of people talk a lot about their partners to people in their lives. It's like, he did this and he did that. So then I feel like a lot of people shoot themselves in the foot for their friends not liking their partners or their families not liking their partners. It's like, I wouldn't go and share information about, you know, like, I feel like we can just blab off sometimes. Oh, you know, they did this and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, of course your friends and family are going to develop perceived perceptions on this person. So choose wisely what you tell the people around you, I think, is a good thing as well. Yeah. Set your boundaries there with yourself, like honor yourself too.
Absolutely. Because, like, back in the day, you know, I remember a few friends telling me, you know, their boyfriend issues, right? And I'd be like, well, why are you with them? Because they never used to tell me the positive sides.
That's exactly right.
One got really angry with me, and I'm like, but you're not telling me anything positive, so this is all I'm hearing from you. And, you know, the same with me, I did that back in the day. And so when friends would tell me stuff like that, I'd be like, well, you know, see their positive side, what are their positive traits? And even now, like, we keep our relationship private, and I love that because nobody gets involved. Back in the day, everybody got involved. Now it's like, no, we have our boundaries. Nobody needs to know everything about your relationship because it's your own personal relationship. Why does everybody else need to know about the ins and outs? You know, share the positive bits, share the negative bits, but don't share, like you said, just the negative bits, because then that becomes the perception of your relationship.
Yeah, it does. And if you want to have those people around you, and if you're allowing, if your boundaries are that they can come in and chime in when you're saying, oh, they're this or they're that, and you allow your friends to come in on that space, that's the relationship that's created. I think, again, compassion. We all go through shit. We all have stuff in our relationships. Compassion, total compassion for all of humanity, total self-love, total world love. Like, it's such interesting topics. Well, I don't think we will go into women's empowerment. I think this has actually tied nicely into women's empowerment in general. You know, I think self-love is super empowering. I know that women's empowerment is something you and I both focus a lot on in our space, and I feel like just this conversation has been enough to not dive deeper into that. So, Gurds, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience before we finish up?
I would say trust in yourself, ignore the critics, and just do you.
Yeah. I love that. Just do you.
Because that's all we can be. When, like, I always say this thing, when all the layers are stripped off, who are you? That's who you are.
And peeling back those layers is part of the journey to bring you just closer back to yourself.
Yeah, the social, the cultural, the religious, even our genders, everything. When that's all comes off, who are you? Is that beautiful essence that you were supposed to be in this world?
Yeah, good feels there. Gurds, where can our audience find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at www.getinspiredwithgurds. That's Gurds. You can find me on Facebook at Get Inspired with Gurds. You can find me Gurds Hundal, which is Hunzal. You can find me on Instagram as well at Get Inspired with Gurds. You kind of pretty find me everywhere.
Yeah.
Just type in Get Inspired with Gurds or Gurds Hundal on Google, you'll find me.
And I will put all the links all over the social media as well. So thank you so much for joining us in this space. It has been such a great conversation with you, Gurds.
Thank you for allowing me to be on the show and just talking to you again and just sharing amazing stories and everything. Thank you.
Yeah, so beautiful. Thank you. And to each and every single one of you who have tuned in today, thank you so much for joining us in this space. If you haven't yet subscribed to iTunes or to YouTube, please go ahead and do so. We have a new podcast that comes out each and every single Wednesday. We'd love to have you join in the fun each and every single week in this space. Much love to each and every single one of you, and I will catch you next week. Mwah. Till then.